Bonjour, mon amis, et les gens. In life, we encounter all kinds of problems, all kinds of people, and many of us are satisfied with the results, or rather, we tell ourselves to put up and be satisfied with the results as follows. But the main thing that a lot of people fail to do when it comes to solving problems is the first thing that you should do with most problems is ask yourselves questions. This is exactly what beliefs like religion do not do. They actually are against the idea of you questioning really anything. Which, if I was made in God's image, and God and man was made in God's image, wouldn't that mean that my creator would at least expect me to ask questions? Especially even whenever you have so many foundations and examples set up, when those things are not, when they are made out to be nonsensical, then of course I'm going to ask questions, and of course I'm not going to accept what I've been told to believe without question in advance. But it's funny how devotees, not all, but the crazy, for example, Christian evangelists, the ones that are knocking on your door in the morning, and definitely Jehovah's Witness. I got nothing against anyone who is any of those religions, but it's the ones that make the rest of you look all bad, or the ones that illustrate the real issues with religion as a whole. When you get a bunch of crazies in the same room, the same place, the same day of each week, all agreeing on something, yeah, be very fucking afraid, because it's crazy, like how people. I didn't understand this, and at an early age, of course, I think I was like 11 years old when I stopped going to church, and I never really felt bad about it. Because in the past, like I explained in other videos, I believed that there was a God before I knew what religion was. Religion, when it came into play, and I began to understand what it is when all the confusion came into play. Needless to say, for obvious reasons. But even still, in the future, I began to question why people's methods were as follows. I was like, well, I thought God was everywhere. And from what I can understand, people go to church because they want to be in fellowship, enjoy the fellowship of other people that share that ideology and mentality. Well, I mean, doesn't every other place do that? But that's silly, isn't it? Walmart is a perfect example. You don't see a bunch of people standing around talking about how great Walmart is, because we all know the reality of Walmart. But isn't it the same thing whenever you put it into terms of what I just said about church, why people would typically go to church? Some people go to church because they're made to think and believe that if they don't, they're going to go to some horrible place when they die, or it dooms them to live a bad life, or because they have to, or their beliefs demand it. There's so many different factors at work here, and there's so many different ways you can look at it as well. But with the example with Walmart, I mean, it's a place that's always filled with food. They're practically everywhere at this point, at least in this country, and you get what you want and you're satisfied. Isn't that the same thing with church? I mean, you go to church, you listen to the sermon, and you get what you get out of it, and then you leave feeling like you got something that will be worth your while. I mean, but I prefer Walmart. I mean, even though I don't really care for it, for obvious reasons, because I'm not going to get off topic here. It's funny how, and I said that scenario to also set up another one. It's interesting how people that believe in religions, I'm not going to say God, because there is such thing as theist and deist. It doesn't necessarily mean that they follow an ideology. They also believe that there is a higher power. I guess you could technically say I am one of those. But I find it funny that with the ones that believe in religion, they pick and choose what parts of life to conveniently believe in, which is pretty appropriate because they cherry pick the same thing when it comes to their actual beliefs and scriptures. They want to claim to know all there is to God through the book, or whatever it is they choose to believe in, or whatever path they decide to take. But for things that are, provable, that are right in front of us to see for ourselves, it's not enough for them. They'll just toss that out the window because it doesn't agree with them. And I don't think that's fair. They're always talking about how they don't believe in science, or they don't believe in evolution, or they don't believe in the Big Bang Theory, abiogenesis, and all these other forms of science, which, we have evidence and proof to back up. It's not just bold claims and statements for the sake of bold claims and statements. There's entire books and volumes written on tested scenarios, all of which, prove the results to be as follows. There's so many different branches of science. But, no, they don't believe in it because that's the devil's work and all of that. And, you think you came out of nothing? From nowhere? Well, there's so many common misconceptions about it. I mean, Big Bang Theory never explained why life came to be or where. It's an explanation about how everything came to be. It started from a single cell and just expanded outward. But nowhere did it ever say that it happened instantly. It took a very long time, and it's the same with evolution. I find it funny that people find it too hard to understand that there were primates that we share the common ancestor with that became man as we know it today. And they're like, well, if primates being turned into man, how come there's still monkeys today? It's just like, it's not as simple as you think it is, because in their minds, if it's not God, then it's not understandable. But even if it is God, why wouldn't it be? Like, is the idea and claim that it's not as simple as there it is? Is the idea of it instantly being what we've come to know and understand today not good enough for the fact that it may have taken a long time for everything to form itself? What if God just planted seeds and then let it grow into what it is today? You know what I'm saying? What is wrong with that claim whenever you have evidence to back it up? It's like, this animal hundreds of years ago had this tail. Well, this same animal of a similar phylum and species, but not of the same class, has a tail that looks almost exactly like this one, but this one's longer and is actually meant for something. It's not just there. You know what I'm saying? Why is it that a long, complicated explanation is too hard for anyone to accept, as opposed to a very simple answer and explanation, even if there is an explanation? I don't think it's fair that you can just cop out like that. I mean, it is silly how they can choose to, I don't believe in it. Well, that's the funny thing about belief. The term belief, this is not an actual textbook definition I'm going to give, but to believe or belief is to accept as fact or reality. Well, when you have something that is real right in front of you, with, even as silly as it sounds, with evidence for that in front of you that you can easily understand, and you still, quote unquote, decide not to accept it, decide not to believe in it, then that means that it's delusional thinking, or it's crazy mentality, or I'm not going to say stupid, because stupid is the term that implies that either you know better and choose not to do any better, or you don't understand enough based upon the factors at hand. Your comprehension skills are low or whatnot. So I'm not going to say stupid, because it takes a different level of understanding to, quote unquote, decide to not believe into something that you can easily see for yourself. Imagine, as silly as this is going to sound, imagine, if you will, if someone came up to you and said, well, I don't believe in ketchup. Really? You don't believe in ketchup? You know what most people's reaction would be? You want to know what my reaction would be to that? Yeah, okay. Well, Why don't you believe in ketchup? Oh, well, ketchup, it's a work of science. It's all the devil's work, and it's red, and it's pleasurable, and that's just what the devil wants you to think. He's real creative like that. He's on his shit and P's and Q's. But God would not have you do that. Nah, God would have you live a joyless life where there's so many damn rules to the point where what is the point of living anymore? I can't take a risk. I can't go out. I can't do anything. But now you're telling me that ketchup is bad. You know what I would say to that? Well, ketchup is good and all, but I believe in ketchup. And not because of some book. It's because it's in my hand. It's fucking ketchup. What is the harm in it? I mean, there's no strings attached. I can get it almost everywhere. It doesn't claim to be anything more than it is. And while there are many kinds of ketchup and many developers of ketchup, it's still fucking ketchup. I can do what I want with it. There's no hidden agenda or conspiracy theory of Satan trying to puppeteer his way into your life. But you know what's funny about ketchup? You know what's better than ketchup? Ketchup and fries. You just don't. You just don't understand what you're missing. I'm sorry. You just don't understand what you are missing. So you can live your little joyless, ketchupless life? I don't know. I don't fucking know. You can live your life without ketchup under the impression that you don't believe in ketchup for whatever reason. I'm going to live my happy-go-lucky, ketchup-filled life and enjoy it. Not just to spite you, but because it's nothing that I need to believe in to understand that what is in front of me is reality. But what is in front of you, you choose to accept what you think is reality based upon your own perceptions of reality. But that's the funny thing about reality. Your perceptions will not change reality, but simply color it. Humanity has been on the edge of extinction for 2 millennia for all of its choices and failings and faults. Ignorant of so much, and yet dependent on so few. Henceforth, we are where we are as of today. Au revoir, for merci mon amis, to much of my ketchup-filled delight.